Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Current. So glad that you made it today.
That's right. My name's Ryan. This is Ben. And you know what? We get to be your guys' host today.
That's right. And here's what we are all about here at Current. We are all about encouraging, equipping, and leading you to follow Jesus, leading people to follow Jesus, because we believe that following Jesus will make your life better and make you better at life.
Absolutely. And this is your first time here. There's going to be a QR code on the screen behind me. If you want to go ahead and scan that QR code and share a little information about yourself, we would love to share some information about us with you and get you.
Welcome to Current today, everybody.
That's right.
So glad that you made it. Yeah.
That's right. My name's Ryan, and this is Ben, and we're going to be your guys' host today.
That's right. And here's what we're all about here at Current. We want to encourage, equip, and lead people to follow Jesus, because we believe that following Jesus will make your life better and will make you better at navigating life.
That's right. And if this is your first time here, I'd like to say welcome. There's going to be a QR code on the screen behind me. If you want to scan that QR code, share a little information about yourself, we're going to send you a gift.
Okay, what is happening?
Well, welcome to Current Church. It's so great you guys are here today.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Have you noticed anything weird is going on this morning?
Nope. The sun is out, the birds are chirping, the coffee's hot. What are you talking about?
We've just done this 3 times. 3 times, it's like we're stuck in some sort of time loop. I welcome people, I tell them we're glad we're here, and then you introduce the 2 of us, and then I'm like, here's what we're all about here at Current, and then you do this whole new thing, and if they fill out the form, they'll get a gift and all this stuff, and then bam, the lights go off, the countdown starts over. I feel like I'm losing my mind.
I get it. I know exactly what it is. You stayed up watching Groundhog Day all night, didn't you?
No. I'm telling you, we're in a time loop. It's just like looping over and over again.
It seems normal to me. In fact, you're holding up the service right now, Ben. All right? Maybe you know what? Maybe you know what they say? Third time's a charm, right?
Is that what they say?
Yeah, let's test it. So if the lights go out again, you were right. And if they don't, you buy me a cup of joe.
All right, fine. Maybe if we... Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Current. So glad you're here. Welcome to the time void that I'm stuck in, this horror purgatory. This is Ryan. He has no idea what's going on. We exist to encourage, equip, and lead you to follow Jesus wherever you're at your faith.
Okay, and if you're even new, why don't you scan the QR code and text you, and it'll be great.
Did we make it?
See, I told you. Everything's fine.
Well, I don't trust it. But here's what I do trust. You guys are going to have a great time today. We're going to have a good morning together with one another. Let's just keep this thing moving. Welcome to Current Church on Groundhog Day, everybody. Ryan, why don't you tell them what's next?
All right. Hey, we've got a great service lined up to you today, even though Puxatawny Phil saw his shadow this morning, which means we have another blizzard on the way. Nah. But hey, we have a great service lined up for you guys today. If you guys will, before we get into our next message in this great series we're doing on how to buff up your faith, we're going to sing a few songs. So if you guys will, stand on up, and happy Groundhog Day.
Your word is a lamp unto my feet. Your way is the only way for me. It's a narrow road that leads to life, but I want to be on it. It's a narrow road, but the mercy's wide, 'cause you're good on your promise. You spoke, and the chaos fell in line. I know, 'cause I've seen it in my life. It's a narrow road that leads to life, but I want to be on it. Come on. It's a narrow road, and the tide is high, but you parted the waters. I'll take you at your word. You say I'll believe it. I've seen how good it works. You started, you're completed. I'll take you at your word. You said your love will never give up. You said your grace is always enough. You said your heart would never forget or forsake me. You said I'm saved, you call me yours. You said my future's full of your hope. You never fail, so I know that you'll never fail me. Come on, sing it again. You said your love will never give up. You said your grace is always enough. You said your heart would never forget or forsake me. You said I'm saved, you call me yours. You said my future's full of your hope. You've never failed, so I know that you'll never fail me. I'll take you at your word. Said it, I'll believe it. I've seen how good it works. If you started, you're completed. I'll take you at your word. You said it, I'll believe it. I've seen how good it works. If you started, you're completed. I'll take you at your word. 'Cause you're good on your promise. You at your word.
For I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. For I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it shakes into me, don't fight, still life I live the 99, and I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, till you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
You guys can go ahead and take your seat. Thank you so much for singing that with us. It's good to sing those words and just be reminded of this love of God that I think oftentimes we can forget about. If not forget about, oftentimes maybe not feel in our lives, depending on what we're going through, what we're navigating. But the reality is that there is a God that loves you. He is chasing you down. He's fighting for you. It's a relentless love that wants to have a relationship with you and wants to take steps towards you as you take steps towards him. And by the way, that same God that's pursuing you, that's fighting for you, that's relentlessly pursuing you, is pursuing and fighting for and chasing down people in our community that he wants to demonstrate and show his love to as well. This is why last week we gave you the opportunity as part of our church to give towards movie night at Oak Grove Elementary. It was our fourth Sunday initiative, fourth Sunday of the month, fourth Sunday for St. Joe last month in January. And so many of you gave to that last week. And we will share the results of that here in a few weeks on our fourth Sunday for February. We'll tell you what you gave and what you did and the impact that you made. First of all, I just want to take time today to say thank you for your giving. Some of you gave perhaps maybe for the first time to that fourth Sunday initiative last month. It might be the first time for some of you that you've ever given at all to a church. Might be the first time that you've ever entrusted a church with some of your finances. And I realize that it's a little bit easier to do that when you know where that money's going. You know it's going out to do something in the community. But I want to invite you today, if that was your first time taking a step last week and giving to our fourth Sunday initiative for Oak Grove Elementary, I'd love for you to consider what would it look like for you to maybe have a plan for your generosity, to have a plan for your giving every single week. Because the reality is, while we are for our community once a month on fourth Sundays, we are for you and we're for your family, we're for your friends, we're for your kids in Wambaland and Upstreet every single week here at Current as part of what we do. And so love for you to consider what it would look like for you to be regularly generous in your giving. And you can do that by going to give.mycurrent.church and setting up a plan there. For all of you today, if you consider yourself, if you consider Current part of your church home, you're here kind of on a regular basis, you've been around for a little bit. If you were here last Sunday, you recall that I talked about what it looks like for us to generate a plan for our giving, having a plan for what we're doing. And today, this is your opportunity to live that out. I told you last week, we're instructed by Paul not to give reluctantly, not to give under pressure. So guess what? You've had a week to think about it. You're no longer under pressure. You now have an opportunity to take that step now that we invited you to last week. And so this is your opportunity to live out whatever your plan is this week. Hopefully you've had time to talk about it with your spouse, your significant other, your family, and you've thought about that. If it's just you, you've thought about what that looks like for you personally. And this is your opportunity to take that step and actually live out your plan for generosity. If you're new with us today, I want you to know we don't expect anything from you. We don't want you to give anything. We want this service just to be a gift for you. We're glad that you're here and experiencing it. In fact, I'll say this, you can come for the next 10 years every single Sunday here at Current and give nothing without giving anything. You can do that, and guess what we will do? We will continue to invest in you and be for you, because that's what God is. God is for you as well. So you have that opportunity to do that every single week if you want. But I do believe, and we talked about this a little bit last week, I do believe that in some ways when we're not generous, when we're not figuring out how to give of our finances, I believe that we're cheating ourselves. We talked about last week how we're cheating ourselves physically, our physical health, mental health, emotional health, but especially in our spiritual health. And so love for you to take that step if that's something that you're ready to do. And speaking of investing, next week we have something that we are so excited about. Next week is one of our favorite Sundays of the year. It's Super Showdown Sunday. There's a big game that's happening next Sunday afternoon. You guys know which one I'm talking about? And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And but before the big game, we have Super Showdown Sunday right here, where we have what we call a preach-off between two teams of people. They're going to preach, have some competition, and you guys get to come and you get to vote as part of that. There's some really cool things that we're doing next week. You'll hear about it throughout this week on our social channels. Go follow us. We're giving away an autographed Tyreek Hill jersey next week. No entry fee, no nothing. We're giving it away to somebody next week, but you have to be present to win it. We're going to have one of those Super Bowl pool square things where you pick a square, you know what I'm talking about? And we're going to give away gift cards for every quarter of the Super Bowl. We've got all this fun stuff planned. Photo booth. I'm told that we're going to have a football themed photo booth. And for some of you, we're going to have a Taylor Swift themed photo booth. I don't know what that looks like, but I'll probably be there. So make sure you guys are here for that as well. But here's what I want to say. This is why this is really important to me, that I share this with you. Next Sunday is probably the most fun that we have on a Sunday. We do some really meaningful things that make a big difference in our lives on some other big Sundays of the year. This one is probably the most fun that we have on a Sunday. And so this is a perfect event to invite somebody to. I want to just strongly encourage you. Do not come alone next week. If Current is your church home, do not come alone next week. Do not keep this event to yourself. You will come and you'll have a good time. And I love you guys, but if you call Current your church home next week, it's not for you. It is for your friends. So I'd love to encourage you to bring somebody with you as part of that. We're going to jump into part 4 of our series that we've been in, 5 workouts that can bulk up your faith. And we're going to jump into workout number 4. My good friend Ryan, our adult ministries director here, he's going to come up here and he's going to bring us that message, and it's going to be so, so good. He's going to encourage you to take a next step to help you grow in your faith today. So go ahead and turn your attention to the screen. Hey, if you think about it, and you may not, because you're just focused on your try to stay at least 2 feet behind that light so
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. It is so great to be here. And it was whenever Ben asked me to be a part of this series, I was really excited. This new series that we're doing of 5 workouts that can bulk up your faith, or like I like to call it, to buff up your faith. I kind of like the buff. You know what I'm talking about? So, one thing that I'm really excited about that is because I have been on a ride since 2018. So since 2018, my weight has fluctuated up and down like a roller coaster. If you guys have known me since then, you guys have seen this happen for sure, because You kind of can't hide it, right? In 2018, I was at my heaviest at 410 pounds. And it was at that moment I decided that I was going to have gastric bypass. And so I had gastric bypass. 2 years later, in 2020, I got all the way down to 205 pounds from 410. And the secret to my success during those 2 years was not just the surgery that I had or anything like that. It was that I was working out every single day with my friend at work. And so we had a gym in my office in Kansas City, and I was lucky enough to be able to go work out every single day. And being in that community and eating right, that was what was able to allow me to get down and stay as fit as I can. And so here's actually a quick before and after picture of what I looked like, and then once I got to the end when I was at 205. But if you look at that one right now, I'm not quite there. So something else happened in 2020. And you guys all remember this, it was COVID. And COVID for me was absolutely devastating. COVID for me took me out of community. I stopped working out because all the gyms shut down. And I started having to work from home now, and I was no longer connected. My friend lived in Kansas City. We didn't work out anymore. And ultimately what happened to me is massive depression set in. And so I don't know if any of you guys are with me in that during COVID and during the pandemic, but I had such major depression because I wasn't connected anymore. And I'm a social butterfly. I became a hermit during that time. I don't know if any of you guys experienced that as well, but I became such a hermit that I didn't want to leave, and I didn't leave. And I stayed in the house, and all my good habits that I had and I formed that got me healthy, I lost. So flash forward 4 years from 2020 to actually a year ago next week. This was actually our super showdown from last week. This is a picture of it. So from 205 pounds, I had gotten all the way back up to 380 pounds. And so it was at that moment and I saw some of these pictures, I was like, okay, I don't like who I see anymore. And so my wife and I decided that we were going to start and work together, and we were going to do a program together. We started taking those GLP-1 shots that I'm sure all you guys have heard about. And today, I am actually 5 pounds away from being under 300 pounds again. So I've been on such a ride, but all the success that I've had, anytime I've had success is because I was in community with someone. I was in a partner, and either it was me and my wife doing it or me and my friend. And once I got out of community in COVID, my fitness suffered. Being with people and being in community helps you physically. And you know what? Maybe you guys haven't really had the same story of what I've done, or maybe you try to help yourself out, in this new year. Maybe you hired a trainer. Maybe you have a friend like I did, or maybe you took a class, or maybe you got one of those Peloton bikes. I want a Peloton bike really bad. So we leverage connection for our physical health so much, which got me asking, what about our spiritual health? And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And the fourth workout that can bulk up your faith. And if you've missed any of the previous three that we've talked about, you can catch up, you can replay it, you can share it by going to mycurrent.church/watch. So you can go there. We have all the videos from the previous messages. You can go watch it. So we lean into connection, don't we? We lean into connection for our exercise and for lots of other areas. However, when we start talking about it spiritually, we tend to take that solo. And there's many reasons for this. Many of you guys might have been raised that way. Maybe you're raised that your spiritual life is private and you don't want it to be out there. And so you kind of want that to be solo. Maybe you're worried that you're going to be embarrassed, or maybe it's going to be awkward whenever you're talking with people in a group setting, or maybe you've had a bad experience with church and you've been hurt by the church. Or maybe you're hiding something that you don't want to be brought into the light. Maybe you just think you know better. You think you know it all, and you've been a Jesus follower your entire life, and you know so much. Or maybe it's the complete opposite, and you think, I don't know enough. There's countless reasons of why we do this, and maybe you might just be wired a little differently, certainly a lot differently than me. Maybe you're a little introverted. Maybe people just drain you. And if that's the case, I'm sorry, because I'm one of those people. But I'm telling you right now, you are missing out on your spiritual life and what God has for you if you try to do it solo. Whether or not you're new to trying to discover what in the world this is all about, or whether you've been a Jesus follower for decades. That is true. You know, we are connected today in so many different ways, aren't we? We have text messages, we have phone calls, we have email, we have social media, we have all these different things. And our connection to each other, we can be connected at an instant with someone halfway across the world. And it's okay. But it's funny, that connection did not really originate with us. In fact, Moses in Genesis says that connection started before time even began. So even if we looked at the first book of the Bible, the first verse of the Bible, in Genesis 1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, what's interesting about this is God here, in the Hebrew, in the original form, is Elohim. And now that word Elohim in the original language is plural. And so usually if you have a plural noun like that, you would expect to have plural verbs, right? I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to teach you today. But what we actually see in the Bible is that anytime Elohim is used, it's used with singular verbs, which means it's talking about you have one God as three persons, which is the Trinity, which means that God himself is in community. I know the Trinity is tough to understand, and stick with me here. Whenever Moses kind of talked about creation, right? He was talking about God the Father. So you have God the Father, right? He's the initiator, he's the evaluator. You have God the Spirit, and who's moving in creation, he's in everything, right? And then you have God the Son, which is Jesus. And John told us that through Jesus, everything is made. And later, Paul says that Jesus holds everything together. So when Moses began describing the creation of man, later on he talks like this. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. Notice he says, our image, our likeness. See, the Godhead is in perfect unity. He's a perfect community as he's created us in his image. And as he's created us in his image, there's no surprise that we in us have a longing for community inside us as well. A longing to belong, a longing to be accepted, a longing to be understood. And it's not even surprising that when Jesus was here on earth, he pursued community as well. Even though there was tons of crowds and he always had people around him, he pursued community. We have an account of that in Mark. And in Mark, okay, sorry. It is skipping all over the place right now. So in Mark, it says, when they heard about all he was doing, many people came to him from Judea and Jerusalem and Idumea and the regions across the Jordan and around Tyre and Sidon. See, at this point, Jesus was near the Sea of Galilee, and Jesus would pull aside with his closest followers. And as he did that, and as he pulled aside with them because he wanted to teach these closest followers, that crowds would gather around him. Crowds would gather around him because they wanted to see the miracles that he was performing. They wanted to hear the teachings that he was giving, right? And even at that time, the religious leaders were already plotting against him for his demise. And Jesus pulls out a boat and he teaches the crowd, and then he goes up on a mountainside. And this right here says, Jesus went up on a mountainside and called to him those he wanted. And they came to him. He appointed 12 that they might be with him and that he might send them out to preach. Jesus was intentional. He was absolutely intentional. In fact, in one of the other gospels, when has an account of this, they said that Jesus prayed all night long about the selection of the 12 that he had. And those 12 men that he invited to be with him, they were eager whenever they got the invite. They were probably extremely honored. And probably these 12 had probably already been rejected by another rabbi, because quite frankly, these 12 didn't really fit the mold, right? But they were selected to be with him. They were selected to represent him, and they were selected to be with this rabbi. So let's look at the 12, all right? So the 12 disciples, we have Simon, who we often call Peter, and his brother Andrew. We have James and John, who Jesus called the sons of thunder. How amazing would you have a nickname from God to say you're a son of thunder? And especially when we already had Simon on board, right? So you had Judas Iscariot, who is the betrayer. You have Philip, Bartholomew, James, Thaddeus. You have Thomas the doubter. We called Thomas a doubter because he just always had questions. He was always asking questions. I'm sure you guys have that kid of yours that always asks questions. And then you had Matthew, who is the tax collector. Now, this is interesting. Matthew, the tax collector, he worked with the Romans, and he really kind of just betrayed his own kind, and he stole from his own people, because that's what the tax collectors did at that time. And then we had Simon, who's the zealot. Now, Simon was so zealous. We call him the zealot. He was so passionate for the Jewish nation that he was even willing to see the death of the Romans. He was that extreme. So think about this. We have one man who sided with the Romans. We have another man who wanted to kill the Romans. We had Jesus' best friend, and we had a betrayer, all together. And they traveled together. They lived together. They represented Jesus. They talked together. They walked together. They lived life together. They ate together, and they did life together. So Jesus built a community, right? Or in other words, Jesus created a small group. And bazinga, that's why I'm here. Hi, my name is Ryan James, and I oversee the groups around here. That's why I got this message today. And it only makes sense that when Jesus died, and he resurrected, and he ascended into heaven, that Jesus' followers, as described by Luke, that we're going to look at here in a little bit, valued community that was demonstrated by Jesus. So Luke in Acts says, every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes. They ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. So as they grew, they met in a large temple, church, right? Which is like what we're doing right now. And they met in small groups. And this right here, this scripture is our model for community groups and small groups and what we do, right? And they ate together, they prayed together, they learned together. They realized that community was essential to their faith. They understood that there are important elements of following Jesus that cannot be practiced simply by sitting in rows. Important elements that cannot be gathered, right, by the teaching, by preaching, by lecture environment, kind of like what we're in right now. And it began with 12, and it grew to about 120, and then all the way up to 3,000. And they recognize, and one thing that we like to say around here, they recognize this, that circles are better than rows. Farmers might disagree with me. But groups are better than any Sunday message. And the reason why we say that is because Jesus and the New Testament authors gave 59 different counts, 59 different scriptures about how we are challenged to one another. I said that right. One another. You might, what are you talking about? Well, we're not going to dive deep into all 59 scriptures. You can thank me right now. We're not going to look at 59 different scriptures right now, but here are the major parts. Are you ready? These are the one another's. Love one another, serve one another, be kind to one another, be compassionate with one another, encourage one another, comfort one another, grieve with one another, celebrate with one another, help one another, carry burdens for one another, be devoted to one another, honor one another. I went too soon. Defer to one another, accept one another, forgive one another, be patient with one another, confess to one another, avoid judging one another, avoid lying to one another, avoid provoking one another, avoid speaking evil of one another, pray for one another, teach one another, challenge one another, offer hospitality to one another, live in harmony with one another, be at peace with one another. I'm going to have to take a drink of water here soon. These one another's, this whole list of one another's cannot happen even in the best church services that I'm speaking in. Thank you. I got a couple laughs there. When it gets above 20 people, all right, you need to break that down and start being in group with one another. In Colossae and Galatia and Philippi and Corinth, where we see all these letters to the churches in the New Testament, we see that when there's large groups of Jesus followers were, and when those groups of Jesus followers started practicing all of these one another's, people were envious of how well the Jesus followers treated one another, and they were surprised of how well they treated them. Now, these one another's, that whole list that we went through, it's not easy. All those things it's not even our human nature. So we need practice, right? We need practice. We need to be in community with one another. In fact, our culture right now is in a crisis. The former Surgeon General actually came out a while back and he said there's an epidemic of loneliness. And here's what he said. This is from the former Surgeon General. Loneliness is a growing health crisis affecting people of all ages and backgrounds. It is not just a feeling, it is a serious threat to our health. And in 2021, the Cigna Insurance Group came out and they did a study and they found that 61% of Americans would say that they are lonely. What's very interesting is that number had risen, and this was in 2021, this was post-COVID. So it's still rising. And what's even more scary is that that number is even higher in young adults. It's around 79%. So why is that? Well, the reason why is because we right now, as I mentioned earlier, we're always connected to others, right? But we are rarely connected with others. In January of 2018, the English Prime Minister at the time was Theresa May. She launched the first ever national strategy to combat loneliness because she saw it as an epidemic. And in the Journal of Clinical Psychology, they link loneliness to anxiety and depression. They said that if you're lonely, then you're 2 to 3 times more likely to have depression, to have anxiety, like I did, like many of you guys probably did during COVID. And in the Public Library of Science and Medicine, this is shocking, okay? They said the loneliness increases premature death by 26%. What's most shocking about that is that same 26% is the same percentage they give smokers of a premature death. So let that sink in, that loneliness causes the same percentage of premature death as smokers. So the Surgeon General reaches a conclusion here. It says, the antidote to loneliness is connection. And we must find ways to foster that in our communities. Even if you are not religious, it is important to be connected. This is why we say here at Current Church that life is better connected. It's true of all, whether or not you're a Jesus follower or not. And it's also true right here that no one should be able to out-relationship the church, right? Why? Because God, in and of itself, God is in community as the Trinity, as we talked earlier. And Jesus, when he was here on earth, demonstrated community, as we saw earlier. And you might say, Ryan, listen, I'm good with community. I actually have friends, and I'm not really lonely. And if that's you, that's awesome. But I want to ask you a question. How diverse are your relationships? Because you need people who are going to challenge from a different and new perspective. Do your friends currently, right now, do your friends challenge your faith? Do they help grow your faith? Do they give you an opportunity to invest in their faith journey? So today, let's consider the need to connect relationally and grow spiritually. So here at Current Church, we do this through community groups. Many of you guys are in community groups right now. At community groups, we eat, we grow, and we pray together. And we go through the ABCs, right? Not the actual A, B, C, D, not that. ABCs are accountability, belonging, and care. Accountability is that when you're in a community group, someone's gonna notice when you're gone. If you don't show up on Sunday or if you don't show up to a community group tonight, someone's gonna notice that because they care about you. And you're gonna have a belonging. What that means is that people are going to accept you for who you are. Listen, I'm raising my hand. I am a weird guy, all right? But my community group accepts me, and I feel like I belong there. I truly do. And the last one, care. When you're in crisis, the group is going to be there. Our community group that we're in right now, I can give you a ton of examples of how our group has been there for each other, because we've actually had a lot of crisis in our group in the time that we've been together. I'm going to share two things with you right now. My group is absolutely amazing, by the way. The group that I'm in, I love it so much, and I'm going to share two things from that. Just to give you an idea, our consists of my family, the Burns family, the Etherton family, and we actually just added the Chambers family and the Marks family. It's now a pretty large group. But one thing I'll never, ever forget, and this happened and this blew me away. So we meet at the Burns' house, and they had a dog, and the dog was very old. It has been a lifelong pet of theirs for a very long time. And it was a boxer, cutest thing, loved everyone that she saw, even though she howled at you. But she was such a beautiful dog, but her quality of life was deteriorating. She had really bad hips, and she had a hard time getting around, and they were treating it the whole time. And we all, as a community members, out of our community group, we saw this, and we all love the dog as well. So they ultimately had to come to a decision where they had to put the dog down. And if any of you guys has been through that, that is a crisis. That is hard. And the Etherton family stepped up huge. And no one asked this to happen. And this was so beautiful. And you guys, if you get a chance to see any of these, you should look at them. But the Etherton family set up a photo shoot because they like to do photography, and that's kind of a side hobby they did. So they went over to their house and they staged a photo shoot for the Burns' whole family with their dog, and to take these pictures that they can remember them by. And if you look at these pictures, they're absolutely beautiful. The dog is smiling in all of them. And it was such a joyful situation that I'm sure that the Burns family are going to be able to cherish for a really, really long time. And it was beautiful. Another thing our group is coming big actually happened this last month, or I should say this past year, because it seems like January took a year, right? Anyone else feel like January felt like there was 5 of them? It was just everywhere. So January 2025 has actually probably been one of the hardest months that my family has endured in a very, very long time. My wife's health was in crisis all month long. And it's been awful in 2025. She didn't even get to eat a full meal until probably around January 17th or 18th, because she was just bedridden, and she didn't even work a shift at work until that time as well. And her birthday was on January 8th. And I asked Rachel what she wanted to do for her birthday, and all she said is, "I want to feel normal again. I don't want to be sick." And so we really didn't even get to celebrate her birthday. But the Burns family called me up on her birthday, and they said they wanted to surprise her and come over and just wish her happy birthday and just do that. So they came over, gave her some flowers, gave her some gifts, gave her a card, and I want to tell you that it meant so much to her that someone took time out of their day. I'm trying not to cry here. Took time out of their day to come over and just say, "Hey, we love you and we're thinking of you." Other than family, who shows up for you? We believe here that life change happens best in the context of a community group. And you might say, "Ryan, I'm not sure I really want life change." And I'm telling you right now, if you are a Jesus follower, you should pursue life change, because we have never really fully made it, right? We need the steps, and that happens best in community groups. And you might ask questions like, "Well, where do we find time?" Or "What about childcare?" Or what if we don't like the content? What if we don't like the people? What if we don't like the leader? But you know what? I'm going to say, you know what? Let's put a pin in that for a second. All right? Because this is your chance, and those moments and those questions is when God shows up and allows you to be stretched and you grow. So what you should do when you're asking those questions is you should pray and ask God, "God, I don't have the time. Help me make time." Or, "God, I'm not sure that I like these people," or "I'm not even sure that they like me. Can you help me?" So to help you right now, we're going to give you 3 practical steps. The first step is to express your interest in community groups. which is what we're doing right now. So we start talking about community groups here at Current Church in August and January, and we launch in September and February. So because we see that fall is the new fall and the New Year's are the best times that people start getting engaged with church again. And so if you want to do that right now, I'm giving the opportunity. Take out your phones. If you want to scan this QR code right now, or go to connect.mycurrent.church. Scan that code. If the code doesn't work for you, get a hold of me after service. We have space for you right now, and we have groups ready for you right now. And if you want to be a leader, I suggest please do that too, because we need them as well. And it doesn't take much to be a leader in these groups. All you're doing is really just following content and just being there and talking to people. So we're actually going to be starting February 16th. That's just a few weeks away. So the first step here is go ahead and express interest now, okay? Go ahead and express interest now. The second thing that you're going to do is take the time. Now listen, we are all busy, right? But we have to make it a priority. Show up and engage. And you know what? You don't have to be right, and we just want you to be real. It's okay to be imperfect. In fact, I don't want any perfect people in my groups, right? Except for Jesus. The last step that we're going to do here, so express your interest, take your time, and follow through. Even though you're busy, even if you don't like the content, even if the food you don't like, the food isn't perfect, the leader isn't perfect, the people are not perfect, stick with it for a season. Listen, I've been in groups before that I really didn't even like the first time when I was first in them, because community takes time. You don't, it's not like a little kid at school where you're like, hey, will you be my friend? You're not going up and say, hey, will you be in my community? It takes time. You got to grow together. You got to learn together. Don't leave early, or don't quit too early. And if you have questions about your faith, or maybe you're not as advanced in your faith, I'm telling you right now, community groups are the absolute best place for questions, because that's where we grow. Secondly, if you do have questions about your faith, many of our groups start a thing called Starting Point. And so that's whenever you'll be able to ask your questions, and that's what the whole program is meant to do. Maybe you say, but I'm introverted. I really don't want to do that. I'm going to tell you right now, in our group, we probably have two of the most extroverted people in this church, and myself and Nicole. And we also have very introverted people, and they feel like they belong there. So if we can make it happen, I know you guys can make it happen. So many times community groups are over for the night. When I go home and I'm driving home and I really didn't feel like going in the first place, I would drive away and I'm like, you know what? I was so glad that I pushed through and I got connected. So you might ask questions about, what about kids? Now kids are tricky. That goes with depending on group to group. Every group does it differently. Some groups, they'd say, we want to have this more adults here, and they utilize family or grandparents to babysit their kids. In our group, we actually have our kids show up, and all of our kids there. And I will tell you right now, it is a full house. If you know all those families I said earlier in our group, and we have all of our kids there, it's a full house. But I'll tell you that it's worth it, because our kids have actually become best friends. And I would encourage you, don't wait till you don't have kids to join a group, because you're missing out on an opportunity to model for your kids what being in a community group is like. And you're missing out an opportunity for you to grow. You might say, you know what, I'm just too busy. And now I'm talking to everyone in the room, because everyone is busy. We all have travel. We all have competing things in our calendar, right? But I challenge you, get in a community group, put it in a calendar, because what gets in a calendar gets completed. When we prioritize community groups, you'll notice a difference. So lean in to Workout 4. We're going to call Workout 4 group fitness, right? Connect relationally, grow spiritually, and according to the research, it'll improve your emotional, your mental, and your spiritual health. Help live out all those one another's that we talked about earlier, because you can't do it otherwise. I want to pray over you guys real quick. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we love you. God, we thank you so much. God, you are so amazing. You are on the throne and you are above all else, God. God, I just want to thank you so much for everything you're doing in the lives of everyone in this room. I thank you and praise you whenever the going is going great and where going is going hard. I want to praise you through it, God. And God, I pray today as we've talked about being connected with one another, that God, we would be encouraged to take those steps to express interest and join a community group and make a difference in our life and really dive deep into what you have for us. And God, it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I want to invite you to stand. Let's sing together.
And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. God, I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to.
Here is where I lay it down, every burden, every crown. This is my surrender.
This is my surrender.
Here is where I lay it down, every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to, God. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to, whatever you want to, oh, and I will make room
To do
whatever you want to, Lord, whatever you want to. Shake up the ground with all my tradition, break down the walls with all my religion. Your way is better. Shake up the ground with all my tradition, break down the walls with all my religion. Your way is better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Your way is better.
I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. God, I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to.
That was a great service. I want to thank you guys for leading into this today. And as so far this whole series has been really good. I've really enjoyed it. And I love even giving a message when I'm speaking to myself. And I really feel like I did that today as well. I want to remind you guys, next week, Super Showdown. It is going to be a ton of fun and really bring someone to it. In fact, there's people in here right now that last year at Super Showdown was their first service, and they're still here today because it really is a fun time. So invite people next week, and don't forget, go Chiefs. You guys have a great week.